Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Drummers Education Connection. We are here with a really special episode today. Super excited about this. I've been looking forward to this all week. We have a panel of very well-established artists and educators, and I'm really, really excited to hear about from all of them. We are the Drummers Education Connection. My name is Jeremy Steinkohler. I'm here with my friends Bart Robley, Rick Stojak, and Chip Ritter. We're here every week broadcasting live on Facebook and on YouTube, and we talk about all different things related to drumming and teaching and lessons and thriving during COVID, which is what we're going to talk about this week with all our special guests. So if you're listening to us today, you can chime in with comments on Facebook or on YouTube. We'll see your comments and we'll be able to talk about them, and you can ask questions from any of our guests. So I'm super excited that two of my very dear friends are here today. Jim Royal, he's runs the Jim Royal Drum Studio in Connecticut. He's been doing that for 25 or 30 years now. He plays on the circuit. He's got a really thriving school program going there on all different modes of percussion, drums, mallets, steel drums. And he's even taken his student ensembles to tour overseas, which is super cool. And Jim has also written a book of steel pan compositions called Pansicles. And you can check that out on Roll Off Productions. Also here is my friend Dawn Richardson. Dawn was the drummer with the band Four Non Blondes. She's also played with Tracy Chapman and Jane Weedland from the Go-Go's and done lots of other really, really cool projects. Dawn is a fabulous drummer and a well-established educator in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I'm pleased to say a very good friend of mine. Bart, you want to tell us who else you got here?
I got two great drummers here with us today. I'm going to start down in the bottom right-hand corner from my vantage point with my friend Neil LaFortune up in Canada. Hello, Neil. How you doing, eh?
Great. How's it going, eh?
Yeah. Neil is a great guy, and he runs a show called the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break. And Neil and I are both Gretsch endorsers and Gretsch artists. And just Neil's a great guy and a great ambassador for not only drumming, but drumming and music education. And then right beside me, off to my side here, is my friend Rob Heskett. Now, Rob is my very first drum teacher. I have known Rob since I was probably 8 years old. And Rob is a great guy. He's an amazing drum teacher. I met him at a place in Colorado called Crescendo Music. I used to own a place out there called Crescendo Music in Littleton. And now he has a studio at his home, Two Cobb Drum Studios in Littleton, Colorado. And he's a great guy. And it's an honor to have you with us today, Rob. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Bart. It's an honor to be amongst all of you other drum impresarios. So I welcome the opportunity to jump in when I can.
And look, impresarios, he knows huge vocabulary words. That in and of itself is amazing.
I got to Google what that means. Let me look.
I spend too much time on wordscapes.
There you go. Okay, so now we're going down to Rick in San Diego.
Hey everybody, welcome. We need a drum roll for my introduction. Bart, can you do a drum roll?
I gotta get my pad off the drum. Okay, here we go.
All right. Yeah.
How was that?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from Baltimore, Maryland, Murray Piper.
Hey,
Murray is an incredible drummer. If you don't know Murray, he's the guy you just want to know because he's just the sweetest guy in the world. His shirt says it all: passionate drumming and music lessons. He's super diverse in all of the different ways that you teach. I know you teach kids and you teach groups. And look at the product placement there. There's a lesson for all of those younger drum teachers. Like, let people know what you play. I'm sure all your students are buying all of that, all those products. And not only is Murray a great drum set player, he's a killer percussionist. Just check him out on YouTube. There was a great video he did yesterday on some reggae drumming.
Check that out for sure.
Just fantastic. So it's a real honor. We just want to supply and encourage people to tune in with any questions that you might have. This is a huge panel of expertise, hundreds of years of experience right here. And so on YouTube or Facebook, just ask questions and we're happy to answer them. So, and no matter what your age, no matter what your style, no matter what you're into, we're here for you, and we just want to grow this all together, and it's just great to be part of a community. So, Jeremy, did you have a question you wanted to start off with?
I did. And first, let me just say real quick, what an honor it is to be here, to have you all here. Really, we're among some legendary players and educators here. So thank you all for taking your time to share your expertise and your wisdom with us. We wanted to talk today about just sort of broadly what it's been like to deal with this challenge over the last year, COVID, and the pandemic, and having to adjust the balance of what we do. You know, all of us are teaching artists, right? So we're performers and we're educators. And I know I speak for almost, I think, everyone when I say I'm equally passionate about both things. You know, they're both super important to me, and I put just as much energy and effort and passion into my teaching as I do into my playing. But of course, with COVID, that balance has been affected. It's been upset because the gigs are gone almost entirely. So I want to hear from you guys. I'd like to ask Murray first, just how it's been for you. How has COVID affected the balance between teaching and performing, and what changes have you had to make to adapt?
Thanks again for having me, guys. I am elated to be here with all of you guys. I tell you, I started online before COVID hit. And so I went to a Sabian education event, and they was hosting one, and there they were already talking about building your network globally. And I got to the drawing board, leaving there inspired, encouraged, and I got to this technology. Hey, I didn't know all of this, but I knew someone who did know. And I got started teaching online and hit international very quick. And so when COVID hit, it was actually a little bit more smoother transition for me to get all of my students acclimated to the softwares. Zoom had been around for a while, FaceTime, and all of that. So that actually worked out pretty good for me. I think the thing that that I guess we all dealt with was that audio thing and that lagging of internet. And so you had to be patient. So overall, it actually worked out pretty well for me that I could actually teach international or here in the States. I do teach the kids, and I run some phenomenal group classes with the kids, getting them ready for that next generation. They are so talented, they're so gifted, and that's where I can get them, even down to the 5-year-olds that I teach here online. I'm having a blast introducing them to video games and all kinds of cool things that we can do here on this wonderful platform. There's so many tools as educators that I'm running across that's engaging my community. That's what I really look forward to, is teaching my community, which long term gives me a student for quite some time. So overall, it's been pretty well for me.
That's great. That's great. Jim, I know you run a school that has in-person programs, right? So how's that affected your operations there?
Well, first I want to say again, as Murray said, this is such a wonderful platform, and everyone on this panel and everyone that you have is simply amazing, and you'll learn something every week. So I hope people continue to jump in and check it out and spread the word. So yeah, we are an in-person studio, and it wasn't until COVID mid-March that I had to do an online lesson. I've never done a virtual lesson. I've seen Dom Famularo and different people do it for years and are so successful, but I've never had to. So there are 3 of us on staff here, and we're pushing over 100 private students a week in percussion ensembles. So suddenly it all had to go virtual. And I think we did about 90% of our students online. So I had to learn pretty quick on my toes. And I was teaching pretty much 100% of my kids online. And there's a learning curve, but again, you don't just go through it, you grow through it. And that's what I did. I still have a lot to learn. We just got to push and go forward. I mean, as far as ensembles are concerned, we kept them going. But when you're dealing with, normally you're playing steel pan and all the mallet instruments and different things, we had to change course a little bit with who had what. And we had to use different forms for recording, like a cappella and different things, because playing live in rehearsals was tough. And you had to mute everybody and you could play along. And again, for someone who's done everything live his whole teaching career, it was a challenge. But in September, we're all back live and we're following all the protocols, temperatures every day, masks and sanitizing, and ensembles are back strong. So we're just hoping that, we stay healthy and continue. But you know what, going forward, I'll never have another snow day. And we just had another big snowstorm. All lessons continue. All lessons continue. I mean, our students are on contract. So, makeups are rough. And you want to keep the kids going, especially as Murray said, when you have the young kids that are 6 and 7, if you miss a lesson, I just feel people fall back, way back. And you want the consistency every week. And with virtual, there are no excuses for that now. And you could still get your 100% passion into it. That's what we try to do, and keep the smiles and keep the drumming going. So we're doing quite well. And thanks for asking.
Yeah. Don, do you think that, I'm curious, like what you feel like some of the things that you've had to change to do online lessons, what's going to stick with you? What's been good for you? What's worked? What do you want to keep going even after COVID's over?
Hello. Thank you again, everyone, for having me on the show. I think this is a great new group that you started, and I'm happy to be here as well. I wish I were more like Murray, but my story is closer to Jim's, where I was forced quickly into this whole thing and had to quickly pivot from all in person to online. And it's been, a learning experience, and I'm thankful for that. And I think that it's in some ways has pushed me to do things that I definitely was not comfortable with before, and I'm glad for that now. But it's been a journey for sure, and I'm glad that now I have a way to I don't have to be geographically next to someone to give them a lesson. So this is pretty cool.
Do you anticipate you'll continue teaching online lessons after things reopen?
I do, yes, I think so.
And Rob, how is it for you in Colorado? How has COVID affected your whole teaching gig and performing and all that?
Yeah, well, I'd have to say I'm probably a little bit behind the curve as far as some of my cohorts here have been discussing as far as doing online lessons and Zoom type, if you will. I'm still just doing in person. I have a home studio, so it's not a big operation. But when we had to close down in March of last year, I was bringing in around 25, 26 students a week, and I'm just a one-man operation. That's pretty much been cut in half. It's been a slow grind getting students back in. And I think until things open up, like the schools, for instance, and in all the states, and parents are more comfortable, say, with the kids being in person, things will probably pick up for me. But I haven't really gone down the electronic road per se and gotten involved in online type lessons. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Neil, how about you?
I started doing Zoom lessons because some folks were 3, 4, 5 hours away from me. So I had started doing that, but then I had a bunch of students here locally, and I didn't teach from March of last year until July. And then it was safe in July with the new drum room outside in the garage. And so we're distanced, and we would sanitize. And where I live, 90 minutes north of Toronto, the COVID cases were certainly a lot less just due to the population. So I had a bunch of in-person students, maybe 15 a week. And now I think almost all but one are doing some online things. Either we're doing some Zoom or FaceTime. And what I will do in addition to that is I will record videos, little 1-minute snippets of their homework, and send them little bits. and then do little pictures of the sheets that I write out for their homework. So it's as close as I can get to them being in person here. And it's okay. I'm missing seeing the kids in person, but it's okay. It's better than nothing. Zero performance at all. I had 10 gigs last year, and nothing, because I play a lot of soft seat theaters with the tribute show. So we'll kind of see, and we're on lockdown here, so we'll kind of see when the students are going to return in person. But we're trying to make some kind of transition.
So all you guys really, and Don also, you're been able to adapt and pivot and keep doing what you're doing. I mean, I think a lot of people saw this coming and were like, oh, music's gone, gigs are gone, inspiration's gone. But for those of you, some of you had already made that switch a little bit to doing online lessons, but everybody's been able to keep it going one way or another. I mean, I think good on you all for continuing keeping the flame going and making yourself available to your students in whatever way felt safe to you and safe to them. Bart, do you have any questions for any of our guests?
I think more than anything, it's a comment more than it is a question. I think all of us as professional musicians, there's always that point where you got to stop and pivot on your heels, and go the other way. And I like what Jim said and what Don said, that you got to kind of adapt, and Don said that she wasn't necessarily ready to do online lessons at first, but then all of a sudden it happened for her. And Jim, I mean, the fact that you're able to keep an entire studio thriving is fantastic. I personally think that people are resilient. I mean, nobody's in our lifetime, we've never seen a pandemic before by any stretch of the imagination. But I think if you're resilient enough and you're passionate enough, again, okay, Murray, sure, you're passionate about drumming, you love what you do. I think that's step number one in being a drum teacher and being a drummer, and period. You got to love this stuff to be crazy enough to try to make a living at it, and then pass it along to other people. If you're not passionate about it and you don't love it, students are going to pick up on that. You're not going to have a very good teaching career in the first place, So I think it's good for everybody that yeah, it was tough at first, but you adapt and overcome. I think that's that's what you got to do in life in general. You have to do that life in general. Yeah. Jim, I have a question. Actually, now that I said that, I do have a question for you, Jim. How many drum teachers do you have at your studio that actively teach at your studio?
Currently, there are 3 of us on staff.
Okay. And do you have stations set up for each one of them individually?
Yes. And currently, the building is set up where the ensemble room is the next. It's like a street level, like a split mall, if you'd call it that. And when I bought the building, my goal was that I wanted that space next door so I could have the big, huge ensemble room. So my assistant director, Brian, and I decided, because it's him and I, and then we have one other teacher that comes in and fills in on some of the days as well. But we would be on each side separately so that we were really isolating, so that your kids only came in on your side and left on your side. No parents were waiting in the waiting room, keeping it really clean, full, and safe. And that's worked for us for now. Once we open back up again, like with people being able to come in and do all their practicing and whatever, we can add, if we need to, another teacher or so. But for now, 3 of us were handling all of our teaching needs.
Great.
I'll just share a little bit about my experience running the BandWorks program here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I run a school of rock and roll type of program. And normally we have about 40 bands that are running concurrently every quarter. And when COVID hit, we had to, nip it in the bud and shut it down immediately. And then we pivoted to doing all online classes during the summer for our summer camps. And that was, we didn't know what we were doing. We were figuring out as we went, like Dawn was talking about. But still we're able to, through our diligence and desire to make it work, offer a quality program for kids, even if it was something different than what they were used to. It wasn't rehearsing in person, it wasn't performing live, but it was learning new, learning how to use a DAW and learning how to use online tools and platforms to record together and make videos and stuff. And since then, we've been able to open back up to do classes in people's backyards. So people were so wanting this. They were so desperate for making music together with one another. They were willing to, not rehearse in the studio, but rehearse in people's backyards, weather permitting, get together, socially distance, have the rehearsals. And we had our concert at an outdoor venue with no audience. We just live streamed it. So, it's like if there's a will, there's a way, right? And Murray, you got something to say, to add?
No, I was going to piggyback on Bart. You hit something that struck a nerve for me. Is that I noticed during this pandemic that I end up being a lot more personal with my students. This country was hurting. People don't know. People are losing loved ones. So the little bit that I could do when they would come into a class or a child, now you get a chance to see. A lot of times you don't know where your students are living. You don't know how their living conditions are. And it's so much going on. And so drums then became more an outlet. It's, what? Don't even tell me what's going on. If you want to share, you could share, but let's bang some drums. Let's feel better. Let's make some music. And so music, passionate, came in more, not just about picking up some drumsticks and learning rudiments, but it became relationship. It became, hey, I'm not just a teacher. I actually care. I remember what you told me last week, and mom and dad is at home working. And then you can hear mom saying, hey, that's too loud. And then the kid gets discouraged and don't want to play no more because everybody is home. It's so many issues that were going on and still going on that I had to find a way to dig a little deeper and make this not just about a paycheck. Don't make this about just another drumstick hit. This is more, it's like, you know what? Mr. Murray really, really cares. So you struck a nerve, Bart, when you start talking a little bit in depth on what we are actually dealing with. And then I found out, they said, you know what, Murray, I'm coming twice a week. Why? It's because my son, he's having the greatest time in his life. And then it was like one parent called me and says, Murray, get my son off the Xbox. I said, sign him up. Sign him up. Fortnite, here I come.
Dawn, you had something to say?
Yeah, kind of along those same lines. I mean, I think that when this first started and I was thrown into this and hadn't done the online teaching before, I attended like a webinar sponsored by the NAM Foundation. And their point was that it's more important than the technical aspects of it all to keep your students engaged. And right away, as soon as this happened, and I had parents saying, you're going to do online lessons, right? And I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess so. Sure. So it felt overwhelming at first to figure everything out, how to do it. But it's really proved, like Murray said, you're in their homes now, which you weren't before. So you're hearing their brother play video games while your internet connection is sucky because of that brother. But, it's, and then some of the grownups, now I'm there for happy hour, they're having a glass of wine, we're talking, we're doing our drum lesson. It's like a whole different level of communication than we were able to have before. So there's definitely, along with the difficulties of the latency issues and all that, there has been some really like personal connection things that have been great, and where parents have contacted me and said, I'm so glad that you were able to still do this and be in his life, because everything is a mess for them right now,
Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, John.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, Bart.
I've found too that I've had a lot of my long-term students that have been with me for a number of years. When it first kind of had to switch over to online lessons, they were reluctant. Now, like Murray had said, and a few of us had piped in, I'd been doing online lessons for quite some time, not to this extent, but it was just kind of, talking into a camera and pointing the camera down, showing what I was doing. But as time went on and it kind of became clear that we weren't going to get back in person anytime soon, I upped my game. So I got a couple more cameras and I figured out how to work them, and I got my sound figured out. And it's like anything, the first time you try to play paradiddles, you weren't good at it, but you worked it out. So I worked these problems out, and I found that my long-term students that have been with me for a while, now they're saying to me, even when we get back in person, I might just stay online, because like even in a drum lesson, I can look over at you and I can see what you're doing, but online you turn on the overhead camera and I can just see exactly what your hands are doing. Or down by the foot cam, I can see how you're, letting the beater bounce off the head and not play into the head, or, whatever, if it's a technical thing, something like that. So, I think that, again, people being resilient, I think sometimes they find that what they thought at first was not going to be so great, like, oh man, this is going to be horrible. It's like, wow, this is not only better than I thought it was going to be, but it's really good. I think it's your approach to things sometimes too, and again, I'll say it again, the passion you put into it. If I would have just sat here with one camera, probably wouldn't have been so good. But I think if you up your game, your students are going to see that you love it and you're doing it for them, because they want you want them to get better. So that's great. My take on it.
Totally agree. And I have a lot to add to that, but first I want to call on Rick. He's been wanting to say something for a while.
Well, just piggybacking on what you were all saying, this is a great opportunity for us to connect with our students. It's like being welcomed into their home, like you were talking about, Dawn and Murray, and I've met more grandmas and dogs and brothers and sisters. It's so fun. It's so fun. And so certainly there's a lot of advantages. And like you were touching on, Bart, for me, I just love looking and seeing how people have their drum kit set up and helping them out with that. I mean, they could take lessons for years and have their kit set up wrong. And so this is a big saving grace. So, do any of you others have any thoughts on advantages? And also one other question. When you get that student who says, hey, I don't want to do online lessons, I'll wait till the pandemic is over, how you've convinced them or talked with them about trying some online. So does anybody have any, Jeremy, do you have any thoughts on that? Like how to advantages and how to convince them to do it?
I only lost about 2 students when this happened. And one of them just didn't have any online capabilities. Like they didn't have a new enough computer with a camera or anything, and they didn't want to invest. And the other one, she was already sort of busy and had a single parenting situation. I knew it was sort of an opportunity for her to bail out. So I haven't had a lot of experience having to try to convince people to do it. I have had some people call and ask, are you teaching lessons in person? And I'm not. And they've said, okay, well, I'm going to wait until you do to start up. And I said, that's perfectly fine. I respect everybody's comfort level with this. So I haven't really tried to convince anybody, but there have been some really, I have to tell you guys, in the beginning, when I first started teaching online, I was not feeling great about it. I'd done a handful of lessons online before with people who'd moved away. But I was like, there's the latency and I was missing all the nonverbal feedback that I could pick up in person, reading their facial expressions and watching their hands. But now I actually really enjoy it. I feel like it's super productive and valuable. And I've been able to see how poorly tuned all my students' drum sets are.
There it is.
I was like, wow, I had no idea, right? Like you say, you teach them for years, they don't know anything about what their drum kits look like and how poorly tuned they are. So I did a clinic for my students about how to tune your drums. It's like, what a great thing. I never would have known to do that. But I also found myself being even more patient, as far as the pacing of the lesson. Like when I'm person to person, in person rather, it's loose and it's casual, but it's also, we're here to work, and I push them to work and to focus. But I'm a little bit more patient with distractions now, and just hearing about how things are going for them. I always check in with my students at the beginning of every lesson, not just how was your practice week, but how are you doing? And now, especially more than ever, it's like, they're dealing with things that are so much bigger. And this is not just a, let me get better at my skill. This is an outlet. This is something that keeps them grounded. It's something that they can look forward to. It's separate from all the worries they have to deal with during the rest of the week and school and parents, bratty brothers and all that. And so, you know, I just try to make it a safe and comfortable place to talk about whatever. And then let's have some fun playing some drums too.
One thing too that I'd like to add, I think that I don't know about you guys. I'd love to hear you guys chime in on this. I've been able to also, you know, I've always done clinics, like I'll do an in-store clinic or what have you on a certain subject matter, but I kind of upped my game with every other Friday. I started this thing where I'm just doing it. It's a half-hour class and it's $5 to get in on Zoom. You know, I don't care if there's one person or there's 30 people, and we go over one rudiment, and then I show them how to apply it to the drum set, and we just do one rudiment. And I found that the students are really enjoying that. And then I also have done a couple of like a clinic class. I've done an in-store tech and tune, and I thought, well, why not take that clinic here? So I did a tech and tune thing on how to change the heads on your kit, how to tune your kit. We're talking about, you know, kids, their kits aren't tuned well. So I did that. And I also hosted a lesson with Don Femulero here on Zoom. So I've been able to do that. Have any of you guys been able to kind of do that, do group lessons or stuff like that, and had it work out for you? Has anybody had any of that stuff happen?
Don?
No, but these are all great ideas. So thanks for sharing. I like the ideas. And the whole thing, Rick, that you were saying about seeing people's kids. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I downloaded a few just still photos, like overhead shot, like, oh, here, this is the positioning you want. I mean, I have a couple cameras now too, but, you know, and I'm like, can you see how my drums are? Or, you know, and then when I send their assignment, so I usually, after the lesson, I follow up with an email that evening about what we worked on and their assignment for the week. And the last few weeks, it has been a pet peeve of mine, like the tuning and the positioning of things. And I found some cool photos of, like, you know, to try and help them, but I can't, you know, they have to do it. So you can only do what you can do. And yeah, there's a lot more important things to worry about in the world, but we can try. So That's my 2 cents on that. That's
cool.
Yeah. Murray.
To answer your question, I have 2 things I've done. Is first thing is I do a jam session, virtual jam session, because I know a lot of my students want to see, and they can't go outside a lot and see all their friends. So they get a chance to meet a new friend, even international. And so they could, and this is one thing I did do. I did an all girls jam session. And so I had all my female students show up. And oh my goodness, from the youngest to the oldest, they had a great time. And so the guys had a little competition. And so I gave them a groove to see who could come up with the best. So we had a great time having a guys jam session free of charge to the students. I just want you to come and meet someone else, and that helped so they could see and meet someone, not live, but here live on the internet. That was great. And then the second thing I did is called House Full of Rhythm. I run a class for the kids, House Full of Rhythm. And I have this room set up with bone whackers and apple shakers and lemons and all kinds of stuff. And the kids love it. And all the cameras are on. And I'm telling you, there you go. It's about 15 slots open, and they just bring the little kids, and we have a great time. So I have done some group virtual stuff.
Nice.
And is that something you were doing before COVID, or you started that during COVID?
That the House Full of Rhythm started during COVID.
Yeah. So just another great example of adapting and creating something where there's a need, right? I think one of the common threads with all the things we're talking about is like just, you know, we're social creatures as humans, and we need that connection with other people. And that's part of why we play the drums, is to play in a band, to play with other people and connect through music with other people. And when that's gone, you know, there's a void. And so it sounds like you guys are just doing really great inspirational stuff, creating new ways for people to connect with one another. Yeah. Rick, did you have something?
Murray, you just inspire me to just have all my students at least just have a meet and greet, and everybody just get to know each other. And I know jam sessions, you know, lag time can be a problem. I'm curious if anyone has ever figured out a way how to get around some of that lag time for jamming. But I just think a meet and greet with students would be a great idea. And then maybe even invite some students maybe who aren't active anymore, you know, just invite them along too. And maybe that's going to inspire them to get back on it and make some new friends as well. But Murray, I also was wondering too, how you are finding international students.
In the search, I've been online so long. And so I'm working with other organizations, third-party organizations that does all of that work, and they're finding my profile on social medias, and they're signing up and putting content out there, just constantly putting content out there that people are saying, you know, I want to study with him. So,
Chip, how about you, man? We haven't heard from you yet today.
Yeah, man. Well, number one, Rob, Neil, Don, Jim, Murray, thank you so much for being a part of the Drummers Education Connection Roundtable tonight. I have a generic question because I keep thinking about teaching online and in person, and I just have a really generic, basic question I'd like to pose to the group. What is your favorite, like, okay, I have a young student and they start getting the groove down and they start really for the first time getting it. I can sometimes see an unconscious smile forming at the corner of their lip. And there's like this moment, this spark of a moment of inspiration, like, wow, I can do this. And that's one of my favorite aspects of teaching. And I just wanted to generically pose a generic question. What's your favorite aspect of teaching to the group?
Neil.
Don?
Who are we going to?
Well,
Let's go to Neil.
I think you, sorry, Chip said my name, but I'm happy to tap out if somebody.
Go for it.
My neighbor's practicing again, but I think Chip, what you said is perfect. I mean, it is that moment of where people, you can see them getting excited about being able to do something they've never done before and that maybe they didn't think they could do. Or, I have all ages too, like a lot of you. And sometimes I get adults who think they're not sure that they can do this. And it's so exciting when they start progressing to a point of, being able to have that kind of joy or, and it's special to see that. It's pretty cool for sure.
That's great. How about Neil?
How about you, Neil? Neil, do you have a favorite aspect of teaching?
Say that again. Sorry, I can't hear anything that Murray is saying, unfortunately, and it
I'm
sounds
sorry.
like it would have been awesome. So I'm going to have to watch. I'm going to have to watch this afterwards. So I don't
Everything
know why,
Murray
but-
said is
and
really,
I'm not a
really
good
good.
lip reader. Yeah, apparently, 'cause everybody's excited. But
Neil.
really, as Don said, I really like the light bulb moments when you see the students light up and that they get something. And I love it even more when their parents will message and say, so-and-so has learned this other song. I'm sure we all have students that don't really say a whole lot. They're shy or they're quiet for whatever reason at the drum lesson, but at home, they're nonstop talking, or on the way home from the lesson, they're nonstop talking about how amazing it was. And when they have the radio on and they go, I know that beat, I can play that song, just those kinds of little things. Or when they're showing their siblings or their parents what they learned at the lesson, those kinds of things are awesome.
Neil, you bring up a good point about sometimes students in the lessons, they don't give you much, especially the shyer kids who aren't very communicative. And so you sort of going on faith that what you're putting out there is landing and that they're absorbing it. And, you check in and make sure they're understanding what you're saying, but you don't necessarily really know what kind of impact you're having. But sometimes you get it back from the parents, or I've had students come back to me years later who said, your lessons were so impactful for me and really shaped who I became as a drummer and as a person. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm honored and humbled. And I had no idea. You were just sat there quiet the whole time. So you got to just keep going on faith that what you're doing is really important and makes a difference in people's lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
How
about you, Rob? How about you?
Well, I'll have to say I have currently have this one student that just turned 6. I mean, when he started with me, he was 5.5, and which I feel is a little young, but this kid has so much drive and so much energy and passion for drumming that it's just amazing teaching him. I've tried to teach him to read a little bit, but I don't think he's quite there. But we put the headphones on and he starts playing the songs and stuff that's new to me. I mean, we're learning a lot of 21 Pilots, and we're learning just a variety of things. But you know what? He feels it, and he plays, and he reacts to it. So I know if I can keep this kid around for several years, he's going to be something else. One of the most, I have to say, inspirational students I've had in the last year was actually a Down syndrome student. And he's at the middle school age. And unfortunately, I haven't had him back since COVID hit. But this kid, I think it was Chip mentioned, when you catch that little smile or that little glimpse of something of accomplishment, I tell you what, this kid would light up. I've got a video of him playing along to Uptown Funk, and he does some stuff that is just, it's amazing. So yeah, it's very satisfying to know that you're having an impact and making some sort of progress with them in their drumming. And yeah.
Very cool.
How about you, Jim?
I got something for you. Is somebody's phone going off?
It's done now.
Okay,
That's my.
right.
It's got some kind of a xylophone ringtone. I'll bet you heard it. 16th.
That's cool. So I've had the pleasure over the past 2 or 3 months to actually, because we're doing online, started to give lessons to my first cousin's son. And I hooked him up with an old drum set. They live in Massachusetts, so we can't do a lesson live really anyway. But something that I've done with him and I've done with other students is that we have a plan. We're regimented, but always ready for a curveball, because I think that's important, the sense of surprise to your students, so that it doesn't get too ordinary week to week. So what I said to him at the end of his lesson last week, I said, hey, Charlie, I said, give me what you got. Play something for me, a song, a groove, a solo, just do something, just play. And he smiled right away. And he goes, I want to play too. And I can't remember the song, but it was a song that I didn't know he was just jamming with. And he just played it. And it was just something that came from him on his own, not from me suggesting anything. And then I'll say to certain students, I'm at the end of the lesson, I'm like, you know what? For 1 minute, I want you to play a solo. And they give you that look like, oh man, I got a solo. So I'll let them solo. And it could be intermediate or so forth. And then they'll start to play. And it'll be more of a groove solo with a couple little flares here or there. Then I'm like, after the minute, I'll stop. I'll say, okay, let's do it again. But this time, solo can't have a groove in it. It can't be a groove. You just got to just wail and do whatever you want. And they start to open up. And again, just to give them something a little bit different from, we're working on major reading, we're working on rudiments, we're working on exercises, could be working on a piece for school. There's a lot of things that I heard today that definitely connect with everybody, where the first thing I want to do when a student comes in, I want to know about how they're doing. And I could tell their body language as soon as they walk into the door, maybe something's not happening. And again, you have to know from all the years of the gears, it's 35 years for me, of when okay, pull back. But sometimes if you say, hey, how you doing? I'm okay. I'm like, all right, what's going on? And then they unload for a second. It could be anything. It could be being bullied. It could be whatever. Suddenly they let it out, and then you're playing, and then the music can start. And I think that's so important. Murray had mentioned that you really get to know them. How's it going with your music at school? What band pieces are you doing? What's happening? Whatever. Did you have a good day? The kid will go, yeah. well, and they'll say, yeah, it was good. I'm like, okay, what was good about it? Give me one thing. What was good about it? And some of them could go, well, I had gym class today. I'm like, that's cool, you know. And then again, we can get to the music. So just trying to mix it up, not make it the same. And Murray, I got to tell you one thing. I never realized it, and I'm a big word guy. And I never thought about it till it just came up today. Your shirt that says passionate, you cut that word down and you pass along the passion to everybody. I never thought about it that way before.
Yeah.
That we are always passing.
Yeah.
We're passing the torch every week. So passion and the word pass. That's amazing. I love it. Thank you for wearing that shirt.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well said, Jim. Well said, Jim.
That's good. That's
That's
good,
awesome.
Jim. I
love
that. This is some great information.
Wow.
This really is.
So
I was going to tap on that last question, and that's kind of good that you said that. I have a student named Noah, and he's incredible. I don't want to say protege. He's just you can give him a gig, really a gig, and he could play it. And so I am so fortunate and blessed to be his teacher. He's got way more followers on social media than I'll probably ever get. And I guess he has a wonderful story. And so for me to be his instructor, I don't say much because I want him to get the shine. And passing the torch, his dad came to me. I said, what is it exactly? The kid can play, just flat out. Evan, he's met probably some of the best drummers in the world at his little age. And he said, I want him to get better at the sight reading. And so that light bulb, Chip, that for me was to hear him play last week, a chart, 3 pages, with all that. I know you can do all of that. I get it. That's what I guess got you famous. But I want you, and we went note for note for note. And when he was able to do that, that's what my light bulb was. So
nice.
I'm curious to ask you guys about your own personal lives. You know, I mean, as educators, and many of us are at the centers of our community, our drumming community locally. You know, Jim, you run the school. Murray, you've got people from all over the world checking in on you. We've all got our sort of little fiefdom that we're involved with, and I think it's really important to, you know, the attitude makes all the difference. I know we all agree on that, and you got to stay positive, and you got to stay, you know, focused on what's working and giving people what they're wanting. But I also know that I've, you know, faced times, especially during COVID, when I just haven't been feeling it. You know, I've been depressed, or I've been unmotivated, or I felt like, God, you know, don't want to get out of bed today. And I'm, you know, there's things that I do for myself that have kept my flame going, that aren't necessarily related to music. Some of them are, some of them aren't. And I'm curious for you guys, what do you do that keeps you motivated for yourself so that you can show up for your community and be motivating to them?
I'll jump in on that one. I got actually at the beginning of this whole thing when COVID started. I've told this story a couple of times, but I'll say it again real quick. When this whole thing started, you know, I think all of us worldwide, when I say all of us, the entire globe, it was just a dark time. It was a weird time. And I remember I was out on a hike, and I had my phone with me, and my phone rang, and it was my buddy Chip Ritter. And he's like, hey, Bart, I got this thing I want to do, and I don't know what it is, but I want you involved. And I know this guy down in San Diego, Rick Stojak. And I'm like, oh, I know Rick, you know. I'm like, Rick, that guy that's like a positive energy explosion everywhere he goes. That Rick, right? And he goes, yeah, that Rick. I go, okay, if he's in and you're in, I'm in. And so and then we got online with Rick, and then Rick goes, hey, I know this guy named Jeremy up in the Bay Area. And next thing you know, Drummers Education Connection was born, and that's how simple it started. And so I think that looking at things like that, looking at like drumming as a community, right? I mean, drumming as a whole, we talk about it all the time, right? You go to the NAMM show, and, you know, guitar players are standing over there in the corner going, I could do that better than that guy. But the drummers, we all stand around and we talk, and how do you do it? How does Chip do this? And everybody's asking questions and doing this stuff, and we have fun and we have a good time about it, and it's a community. And so the thing that kept me going, it just kept me just like, okay, I just want to keep trudging forward, was this kind of stuff, just the community, the camaraderie. I mean, here I am in California, and I'm talking to all these great people all over, in Canada, on the East Coast, up, in Colorado, my hometown. My very first drum teacher, Rob Heskett. My gosh, this is amazing. This is great stuff. So to me, again, back over to Murray, the passion of drumming. That's what this is about. That's what kept my fire going.
I think Rob was going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to jump in. Listen, I wish that I had more students, because sometimes I don't teach till like 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon. And honestly, to address what's been keeping you going, what keeps you energized, my students keep me energized. I look forward to spending the time with them, the teaching time. And I would start at 8 or 9 in the morning if I had enough students. So it's reciprocal. We give to our students everything we can and impart our knowledge or whatever we can share with them. But we get that back from them as well. So it's a very fulfilling thing, and I'm happy and glad and blessed to be still teaching at my age, and I will continue to share drumming and teaching as long as I'm able.
Chip. That's
I was going to pose another question to the group. We've got some drum teachers and educators that are watching this video, and some of them may not have been able to yet make the transition to teaching online in the beginning. And because it can be so overwhelming, and because it could be like you don't know where to start, what would be your advice for somebody who's never taught online, from ground zero, who can teach drums person to person, but wants to get in on the online teaching? What would your advice be? Where would you send them first?
Rick.
I'm always so impressed with all the mic systems and camera systems. Bart and Murray, you guys are real standouts with that. But I'd like to encourage people to just even use an iPad. I'm kind of keeping it simple for right now. I'm going to be making an investment in something more elaborate. But even a simple iPad positioned just to the left of the drum kit, pointing so they can see you at that angle. And just that alone will get you started.
Right on.
So it doesn't have to be super, super complex. Dawn?
I concur. I mean, that's where I started and it was really helpful because, again, when I was worried about starting and went to a couple on webinars and listened, and I started with the iPad up here so you could see the drums, and the audio isn't that great, and eventually I was able to get to a point where I have multiple microphones and a couple cameras and all this stuff going on. But to start there is a lot. I would say you start simple. Exactly what Rick said, and just start with an iPad. It's big enough, you can see it, it's simple, and then just go from there. Once you're comfortable with that, then you can get more tricky.
Right on. Thank you. Neil?
I have a question for Jeremy. Do your private students that you teach, do they have basically an iPad or a computer? Is that how you're teaching? And
yes,
I have the interface and whatnot in my drum room with my Mac, but I don't have multiple camera angles. So my question is, so your students, you said, just are using an iPad or a computer?
Oh, I think it was maybe Rick that said that, but that is actually true for me. Since I'm teaching all my lessons online, most of them are using laptops, some of them are using iPads, and a couple of them are using their phones. I do have a couple of students who are fully set up with mics and an interface like I am here. And that's great because it's like, I look forward to those lessons because their drums sound so good. But it doesn't really matter, and even there's some who they only use the phone, and on Zoom, when you're using a phone, you can't adjust the audio settings, and so it clips out a lot, but I can still make out what they're doing, and I just work with that, so I talk a lot less than I usually do when I'm teaching in person, and I listen a lot more, and I choose my points more strategically about when to chime in and get their attention and give them feedback instead of it being more constant maybe during a lesson in person.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and Neil, a lot of my students are just using iPads, and a lot of them, their big concern is that that they want to make sure that I can hear how loud their drums are. Boom, boom. Is it loud enough for you, Rick? And I'm like, yeah, it's loud enough, man. Like all I really need to do is, tuning aside, tuning is a separate concept, but all I really need to do is see the hit, and just hear a tap. So it's not as big of a deal for students to worry that they have to have some elaborate system. But I think it would be cool for people to see, Bart, your system, because you have a really nice tricked out system, man. If you could just share with us your camera views.
I would actually love to. Now, I have done that before, but the only time I can do that is when we're on Zoom, believe it or not, because here on StreamYard, I can't switch between cameras. It's just the one camera. But you know what? Here, let me try to do this. It's going to make everybody seasick, but I'll take this down. All right. And I'll kind of show you here. So here's the drum set. There's you guys up there on the flat screen. And then there's the computer over there. Now this is the overhead cam, and it's literally just this is like a $15 camera. It's a really not a very expensive camera. I think I got it at Micro Center, and I've got it attached to a microphone stand. And then I have the same exact camera down here by a bunch of spaghetti. So now you can see behind the curtain where it's just a bunch of cables all over the place. But that's the foot cam, and then this is the camera that's right in front of me. Now, the thing I did change was the overhead camera. When I was using it as the overhead camera, I'll just hold this for right now while I'm talking. I called it the hand cam. It was off to my left side over here, and it kind of faced down at the snare drum, and that was a good position. But what ended up happening was they just got a really good view of my left hand, and a lot of times, depending on what you're playing, they couldn't see my right hand as well. So that's when I came up with the overhead camera. And then this camera actually is just attached right here to a mic stand, just by a Gibraltar clamp. That's all it is, just slides in there, and it's attached to a Gibraltar clamp. It's really not it looks really good when I switch back and forth on the cameras, and it works great for the student. It's really not that elaborate. And so anybody that wants to do it, if you get yourself a couple of, like I said, if anybody's interested, they can just private message me and I'll give you the names of the cameras. I don't know them right now, but I got them at Micro Center for 15 or 20 bucks. This one that I'm talking into is a Logitech. These ones are just, a webcam, and on my computer they're just plugged into a different port, different ports, and I just switch back and forth either on Zoom or on Skype. On Zoom, you just go to the up arrow by the camera and switch back and forth between them. On Skype, you go into video settings, and the same thing. There's a drop-down window, and it says camera 1, 2, and 3. It's real simple. But
Chip, you asked.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, can we pose the same question to Jim and Murray? Jim, when you first realized you were going to have to do online, what did you do? Where did you go to learn how to set up your teaching for online?
I went outside and ran for miles, and I was quite scared. Actually, I have an iPad, and I had my iPhone, and I did exactly what Dawn said. I have it for gigs. Sometimes, we're reading music on our iPads, reading charts. So I already had that wonderful clamp to put it on, and that's what I did. And either I was doing FaceTime or Google Duo or whatever the students needed, and I just kind of evolved with it as we went on with who needed what, and I haven't gotten more elaborate than that. It's fine. Sometimes the sounds aren't great, but I at this point I wasn't ready to invest in some of what you guys do with the miking and some different things yet. I haven't done that, and it works currently for me. I wanted to, can I backpedal real quick just for a second? Because I'll feel bad that if I can't share this. Somebody mentioned something about what have you done during COVID to keep your energy and in your head on straight. I just want to share something real quick because I know we're running out of time, but there's something that I do that's called the Morning 5 that I think really is helpful for me. There's a show on that airs at 5:30 in the morning Eastern Standard Time called Rise and Grind, and this guy Glenn Lundy is amazing. But this is his Morning 5. That one, you don't hit the snooze button. And I never have actually in my whole life, so that's easy for me. 2, you stay off your phone first thing in the morning. 3, you're going to exercise, do something. And for me, it's taking the dogs for about a 2-mile walk. And 3, and on that walk, I do gratitude and goals on the way back. And then I go to his planner, and there's a whole journal where I'm writing all of my gratitude and goals for the day. And it just really makes you think about everything. And then the last thing that I do is that I send an encouraging message to at least one person every day. And the latest thing I've been doing, and it might be coming your way soon, is that if it's your birthday, I'm sending you a video for your birthday, and I do it on Messenger, and it gives you about 30 seconds. So let somebody feel some love for 30 seconds and just share a little bit. And I constantly get, that's the best birthday message I've ever gotten in my life. And if you can make somebody feel good, it makes you feel good. So that's what's helped me keep everything going, whether it's COVID or not. I need to do that every day. So I just wanted to share that, and I hope that maybe that can help you.
I do. I want to say I was a proud recipient of one of those messages, Jim, and I do want to tell you that meant the world to me. And it just was, thank you so much. I got that message. Oh, you got a message from Jim. What's he got to say? Played a little drum roll for me. Wish me a happy birthday. It was beautiful. Thank you, Jim. It meant the world to me. That was very nice.
Rick, I know you've got also kind of a practice of sort of like meditation or setting goals for the day with your wife. Is that right?
That's true. And mine is actually very, very similar to Jim. It's our Connecticut roots that we have. I guess we both do a lot of that stuff. Yeah, the hardest part for me is staying off the phone because I want to know what's going on all the time. Keep up with all of you. But yeah, we my wife and I always take a walk, and we call it a pre-pave, and it's sort of like a prayer. It's just setting positive intent for ourselves and the world, and you know what? That focus is super, super powerful, and it just sets us off in a great day. And then we do about a half hour of yoga, and then we do some meditation. And then I've been doing, when COVID hit, I said, man, I got to be tip top. And so I decided to do 100 push-ups every day. And on March 1st, it'll be a whole year of 100 push-ups every day.
Dang,
so,
dude, that's awesome.
It's going to be 57. Jim, my birthday is April 3rd.
You got it.
But I think we can all agree as educators. Yeah. As educators, I think we can all agree if you can. One of the best things about being a drum teacher is making a positive difference in somebody's life, and I know everyone here has done that, and that's just a beautiful thing. And nothing will renew you and help you enjoy life as making a positive difference. And so, boy, all of you have done that for so many people today and for us. So we are grateful for helping us make All Hands on Deck #1 a big success. It was a real blast. So
yeah, this has been wonderful. Thank you guys.
All so grateful for all of you, and I know we're just going to want to have you all back on in the future. And so, Jeremy, how about you? You have some thoughts on this?
Oh, I was just going to echo what you said about thanking everybody for being here, and what a really tremendous opportunity this has been for us. You know, we talked about naming this episode "Surviving and Thriving as a Teaching Artist During COVID." And, you know, hearing all your stories has been truly inspirational, just to hear, you know, the positivity and the outlook and the attitude and the things that you've done to create, to keep it going, to keep your practice going as a teacher, to keep inspiring the individuals, to keep passing along your passion. It's been inspiring to me, you know, and I think to a lot of other people who are watching. So I can't thank you guys enough for everything that you do and for coming here today to share it with us. We're really grateful for you and everything that you're doing for the drumming community at large. And we hope to have you back on for sure, individually, and we'll do another panel.
Ditto. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I think this
Murray, I gotta get one of those shirts, man. I gotta get one of those shirts, Murray.
Yeah, I need one, Murray.
Yeah. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. I want to thank you all for having me as well. I enjoyed it. I want to follow all of you guys so we can stay in touch. And let me end with this. The one thing that I did was I couldn't sleep because I had a vision, because I wanted to help so much. And so during the holiday season, me and my wife and my 2 daughters, we hosted a virtual event called Hope for the Holidays. I reached out to 2 nonprofit organizations and we raised funds. I called some of my good friends from our Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, and we came together and we put on a production like none other, and we were able to have hope for the holidays.
Oh, that's
beautiful.
Great.
Yeah, Murray.
Outstanding.
That's beautiful.
Outstanding.
Man, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Murray.
All right.
Thank you, Murray.
Well, thank you again, everybody, for coming. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone.
And we'll see you next week. We'll be back with another guest and a different show, talking about something else.
Oh, in 2 weeks, we have Joe Bergamini coming on, everybody.
Yes, Joe Bergamini's going to be on.
Cool.
World-class drummer and guy.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Don, Jim,
We have
everybody.
some legs.
Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Chip. Thanks, Rick.